screen. And then, so this is the first visual I have. Here's a little itty bitty part of the silk screen right here. So I'm just holding it on the wood so you can see it. It's an image, it's very simple. Nothing much, a little silk screen. And then I said, well, I have these silk screens, can I print on clay? Let's try it, right? So now so far, everything is still just about process. So, I know it's hard to see, but I started printing on clay. I have all these little clay pieces. And then I started thinking about what kind of palette might be interesting with glazes. And I'll show you some other stuff later on about it, but it's still just about process, right? And then I thought, well, I made all these pieces. Let's make a mosaic because that's what I'm really interested in, or one of the many things I'm really interested in. So here was my first mosaic. And as you can see, it's pretty standard, right? There's the images that I made using the silk screened pieces of clay. I put them together in a way so that they kind of told a story, and then I used a very traditional mosaic technique in the background. It's called opus regulatum, and we'll talk a little bit about what that means. Okay, so then it hit the fan, right? I had this piece, I'm interested, all of a sudden there's all this time, and what else is gonna happen? Well, now I'm thinking, so now I have the second piece. The first piece was kind of pre-COVID. The second piece, I'm thinking about myself. Well, I'm supposed to go to Italy. Right now, I'm supposed to be in, where am I supposed to be right now? Not Venice, Spilimbergo. I'm not there. But I was supposed to be taking classes and taking a tour and going and buying materials and really expanding things. So I'm thinking about Ravenna. I'm thinking about this Byzantine approach where the background is all gold. And I'm thinking about a more spiritual approach because that's kind of what this Byzantine thing is. The gold background is more about the spirit. Okay, time's passing. I'm done. I'm still locked inside. And not to be political, I started to get a little mad. And on top of it all, I was kind of thinking about taking that gold background and flipping it and reversing it. So I made all of these gold flowers. I don't know if you can see. And it was a little bit about talking about perhaps someone political who likes a lot of gold, and also perhaps how affluent people were feeling this differently than other people. So I'm now starting to, my little doodle is starting to get a little more weighted and a little more political. And I really like working in series because when I start working in series, more interesting things develop. So now I have a triptych. And I'm thinking about what's my background going to be. And my background is going to be these shiny gold flowers with a blue sky, because everything's okay. But I'm not mad or anything. But you can see it's starting to get emotional, right?
Carol, how did you get the gold? Did you paint it up?
Good question. So I used a gold luster. So I'm lucky in that I have a kiln at home. So what I did was I made my tiles, I fired them, and then I applied a gold luster and fired them again at a lower temperature. So this was what happens when you have a whole bunch of art supplies stockpiled for many years. I could also have approached it another way. If I didn't have that, I'm certainly not proud. I would have found a gold pen, you know, or I would have used gold leaf. Whatever I had in the house, that's what I would have used. Because now it's about content, right? It shifted from being about process to being about content. My next one, so again, I'm just talking about how the ideas are developing at this point. My next one, a friend of mine is having a really hellacious experience. You know, her husband, unfortunately, is in a very bad way. He's on the ventilator. I'm not going to go on to what's going on. But I was thinking, you know, this her experience is so totally different from the other experiences. The piece is now called Perception. My next one, I'm really going to distress the flowers. They're not going to be perky. I'm using a black background. I might batter or break the frame. I haven't decided yet. So my idea of like process and what subject matter is changing as I go. So I'm not saying that this is how everybody should work or even how I always work. You know, how I work depends on, you know, whether it's for me or for a client, or like every piece of art, you know, not just the subject matter, which of course is probably the most important, but sometimes I start off interested in material or process and then something develops, or maybe nothing develops. It's just a vocabulary word. So let's just say I happen to have a whole lot of stuff in my house. So process-wise, I was able to generate these flowers, these images, and I had a lot of stuff. So
I do have a question about that, Carol. Someone
yes.
wants to know about were the flowers already pre-cut before you silk screen them, or?
Good question. No, I had made the silk screen. I rolled out the clay. Then when the clay was just a little dry, leather hard, I put the silk screen down and I used underglaze that had been thickened with a medium. There's actually a lot of information on this online. If you're interested, you can go looking up. Amico makes a silk screen medium, and they'll show you how to do it on a informational video online on YouTube. Or you can, you know, write down, this is something to follow up on and take a class or whatever. But I silk screened underglaze onto the clay and then cut around the flower. So then I fired it, and it had this black, here, it had the black, this is the silk screen, cut out and bisque fired, so that's the first firing. And then I came back, I glazed on top, and then I started with the luster on top of that for the later pieces. So it's actually pretty labor intensive because I had to cut around all those little notches. So I'm assuming, okay, oh, and I happen to have all this stuff in my house, gold, right? Because as I said, I've been obsessively obtaining art supplies my whole life, probably training for this moment. I'm uniquely suited. So I had gold for the background. I had these, this is small tea, little pieces of pre-cut small tea ready for that. I'm not assuming that you guys have that stuff, so I'm going to talk a little bit about what else to do. Okay, so you have to decide after subject, or I have to decide, what's my material? So if I've decided I don't really care about subject, I'm just responding to material, I could skip to B, but you know, stained glass, marble, small tea. Now I'm just going to take a quick diversion here. Let's just pretend you don't have a whole bunch of stuff in the house, and I'm going to say, here's a few things that you could use if you didn't have a whole bunch of stuff in the house. Aquarium rocks, right? So I know this is a quick diversion, but aquarium rocks, for example, can make some really interesting things. So I'm not saying you have to have a bazillion things or an art supply pile. All you need is a little imagination and spend some time going through wherever you live and find some stuff. So I'll get back to that. Okay, so after I kind of figure out what I'm going to do, what my materials are going to be, I have to figure out my style. Okay, what is it going to be? So if you think that mosaics have started out in the business, well, no, they started out actually pre-Greek. So Mesopotamia, the cone mosaics. Okay, then you're going to go Greek pebble mosaics, things are mostly round, Roman squares, cubes actually. And those cubes are called tessera. So this whole thing has a whole vocabulary. There's a vocabulary and a language, both artistic and verbal. And all of that came out of this Roman Empire, right? We like to name things. So tessera is a cube, And a mosaic is made, in the Roman Empire at least, of many cubes arranged in different ways. So I kind of have to figure out, how do I want my arrangement? So for example, this is far from Roman, but if you look in the background, this was one of the tests when I first started the process. See how it's very regular in the back? So that's opus regulatum, basically a very stiff version, modern version of opus regulatum. So, and these pieces on top, that's opus sectile or opus sectile. That means that the whole piece is made from one object. Okay, so this vocabulary, I decide what vocabulary, both visual and vocal, I'm using, although really it doesn't matter what the hell I say, it only matters what I make, right? And then just another, this is a very rough and ready version, actually much more modern of regulatum. So you can see it doesn't really fit together very tightly. And then this is very, very regular. Okay, pretty kind of Byzantine idea of regulatum. So I have to figure out what my palette is going to be, right? So I need my colors. What the hell am I making? And I was actually going to show you a sample from a workshop that I took at the Chicago Mosaic School, taught by a woman named Carolina Zanelli. And we made Georgia O'Keeffe. It was a very traditional class. Here's the image we used of Georgia O'Keeffe. We all made the same thing using whatever materials we chose. So I made a palette. Here's my palette of stone. Okay, and in the same class, people made palettes from glass. They used many, many materials. And here's my process. So you can see my original, my palette, and how it works. Right, so I'm really looking at a map of the face, darks and lights, and getting as much range as I can from that. Mostly stone. There's a little glass in here and a little glass up in here, but mostly stone. And if you want to have a look at what that mass of material looked like, all right, this is dangerous, kids. I'm tipping the tripod. Here we go. Okay. Ah! Can you see it?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So what you can see here is this tripod, this palette is huge, really, in terms of all of these materials that have to get broken and processed and glued down. But it all boils down to this. Okay? So
a question for you. What type of stone did you use and how did you cut it?
oh, good question. So I use a wide variety of stones. These are mostly marbles because they're easy to cut. But the answer to that really is whatever I could get my hands on. So for example, and you can buy marble. So if you're cheap and the world is an open place, you can go to places like Home Depot and buy marble floor tile and cut it up into squares. Now we're not really running up and down the aisles in Home Depot, really, you know, finding things. You can order. There are places, one place I love to order from, and I believe they're still shipping, is Mosaic. They have lovely selection of marbles. And there's a number of ways to cut the marble. So the traditional way is with a hammer and hardy, which I was going to hold off till tools, but we'll do a quickie one now. So let's just say I have my collection of marbles here. And I have a lot of them, but I just kind of brought this out for a sample. And we're going to live dangerously again. How's everybody doing with this? Okay, here we go. So I have this is the traditional hardy, the traditional hammer. and a hardy. And I don't know if you can see it well, but the idea is that you want to strike the hammer against the hardy in a way that the two pieces will meet, kind of like this. And let's see what, and so you can see, I can break them into smaller and smaller pieces. The idea is to have control. You don't want it flying everywhere. But also, I like a nice ribbon look. I don't really want to see too much of the professionally processed sides. So I'm breaking it more or less into a cube. Can you see? And I can make them very, very small or fairly large. That was a little bit of a, that's a softer marble, so it really wasn't. In fact, I think it's a sandstone. Wasn't really that hard to cut. I don't think it was a marble. But I can cut glass or porcelain or a lot of different materials with this thing. This thing is great. But having said that, and this is a portable version. Usually this is in a stump. But I like to use this for demonstrations because I can carry it around, and the stump is challenging. So it's my demonstration model. But you don't need that. There's any number of other tools that you could use to accomplish the same thing, and I'm going to show you some of those. Okay, let's see, where are we? Okay, we did, oh, scale. I forgot scale. Anything that matters in any other art form matters in this. So for example, is it going to be small, right? That's a micro mosaic. Or is it going to be large? Scale matters, right? Or very large. So depending on what I'm trying to say or how much time I have on my hands, scale is a very important thing. Okay, so did we talk about colors? Again, just like anything else, color counts, right? You can have a very wide range of color. And you know, I like to really mix color. This color wheel I did in a workshop, and it was a great workshop. But I think if I were going to do this again, I would really want to mix the colors more so that it went through more of a pointillist technique than this rigidity here. It was good for the workshop, but you know, I think a little more fluidity would be more interesting.
So Carol, going back to the Giorgio O'Keeffe, did you actually chose the colors ahead of time? Like, did you do a sketch with the colors?
The interesting thing about this technique, which Carolina Zanelli was teaching, but it's based on the technique that's taught at the Spilimbergo Mosaic School in Italy. I didn't actually use the sketch at all. I used the photograph directly. And I made a topographical map showing the lights and darks on that photograph. And then I assigned colors. It's actually a very academic method. I assigned colors to those areas using that palette.
Got it.
So actually, while you're doing it, you know, there's some fluidity. You think something's going to look great and it looks stinky, but so you change it, you know, but it's a pretty academic process for that, you know, that technique. Okay. Let's see. So we talked about colors, palette, scale, and then what are you going to put it on? So first I'll show you what I put the piece I'm talking about on, and then I'll show you what I kind of feel like might be hanging around the house. So this is a board. It's a lot of painters will recognize it. It's a cradled board. I think the wood is, now I have to remember, birch, I think. So it's a cradled birch painting board. And I have some students who like to use this side of it, which is technically the back, because this acts as a frame. But I actually prefer either making my own frame, which I like to do now more than ever because it protects the art, or just going off to the edge and not having a frame at all. So you can get these at Artists and Craftsmen. And normally I go to the one in Chestnut Hill, but actually you can still get them online. Artisan Craftsman just sent me something saying they're still shipping. And you could, Dick Blick has them, a lot of places has them. The only thing is don't get the ones from Michaels. Sorry, Michaels. The quality isn't what it should be. So I have this, and you can just use a regular birch plywood. You don't want to use woods that will warp if they get wet. That's a really important thing. So if you have like a sheet of pine, that's not a great idea. If you have plywood, that's a way better idea than just a piece of wood. So now that I have my frame, my substrate, in this case, what I wanted to do was build myself a frame. So the first thing I did was I put my hanging device on the back. It's just 2 D-rings. And then I created a frame for myself. And here you can see it's actually both decorative and functional because it's going to hold my mosaic in. And what I made it out of was marble floor tile. You can see I don't even know exactly where I got this, but I can peel the parts of the marble off and break them with the hammer and hardy or with another tool that I'll show you. And then I interspersed them with some marble beads. So I go to a lot of bead shows and buy cubes that have been formed by somebody else. So in this case, they're just marble beads. I cut them in half because I only needed half a cube. And by combining those marble beads and those floor tiles, I made myself a pretty handy dandy frame with a minimum of fuss. So let's just say you don't have any of those tile, you don't have any of this handy, you don't have any of this, and what the hell is that woman telling me anyway, because I can't do it. No, here's what I did when I went through my house. Here's what I found. Trays, we've all got them. If they're not flexible, you can make a great mosaic on them. So I'm just saying, you know, don't get cabin fever and think you can't do this because you don't have the stuff. Or, sorry about that horrible noise. This is actually an IKEA frame, and I'm a big fan of this frame. It's $1.99, and it gives you a very big area to work on. And I use it a lot in my classes, but any place I've ever gone there where they do a lot of mosaics, you know, any gallery in Ravenna, for example, there's the IKEA frame. So it's fun and kind of a staple.
Carol, can you use particle? Can you use particle board?
Good question. There's particle board and there's particle board. If we were in a different place, I would tell you, you know, but you could run right out and get anything you wanted. Maybe you wouldn't want to. But having said that, if you have particle board handy, especially if you seal it so that it doesn't absorb any moisture, I would go for it. I don't think it'll go out. Particle board will not handle moisture well. It will not go outside. But, you know, at this point, let's not be fussy.
And someone's also asking about MDF. Is MDF good for?
Again, there's MDF and MDF, and you're not sure who made it. So I would say if you can seal the MDF, and by that I would, you know, they say, well, seal it with what? I'm going to just push this up a little bit. Seal it with what? You can, when we first started doing these, there were a lot of books that said you could do it with 50% white glue and 50% water. Yeah, kind of. You might want to think about using a primer of some kind, something that will work with your adhesive. But, you know, and there are MDFs that go outside, but you don't know if you don't know who made it and what the rating for it is, I would seal it and treat it with care. But there's some great forms. So the answer is, it depends on what you have.
And I agree. I used to sell furniture at one point in my life, and MDF for outdoors, for the most part, never worked. Right. Yeah, so I would stay away from it if you could. Someone is wondering if they can do it on brick or stucco on the outside in the wall. Is that?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes and no.
Okay.
Again, I've done pieces outside on brick, and they have gone up and stayed up and been wonderful. It has everything to do with the adhesive you're using. You want to use a good quality thin set, and you want to make sure that that good quality thin set is rated for outside. And it will say right on the bag, and when you have a choice of which thin set to buy, I always say go for the best quality. It's like knitting with bad wool. You know, it's going to show. Get the good stuff, and if you have any questions, I always call the manufacturer if I'm not sure. And the number's right on the bag, and they can't wait to talk to you. It's true.
They're waiting.
They are. It's their job. And they want to know that somebody actually cares. I mean, I've never talked to a technical person about thin set or grout or any mosaic related material that I didn't get a good answer. So just go right to that number on the bag and call them up. Oh, and also I grouted it on the wall as well. So stucco I'm less confident about. And that's because you have to be confident in the quality of the stucco. If the stucco comes off, the mosaic comes off. So you can adhere it to that stucco really, really well, but as we all know, there's been stucco problems. So I wouldn't look at that as, oh, I'll cover up my bad stucco with that mosaic, because if you're covering something bad, it's not going to work. Did that help?
That's it for now.
Okay. Okay, so I also, in my trip through the house on substrates, any substrate that is not flexible and does well with water is going to be probably pretty good. You might have to think about what glue you use, but almost everybody has a whole pile of these bathroom tiles hidden somewhere in the house. If you live in a house. In an apartment, it's not so easy. But every time the bathroom gets redone, there's a pile of these. And why the hell would you want these bathroom tiles? Because they are a great way to make sketches. So can I diverge slightly and just hold up some sketches? So you can get an idea of what I mean. Because not every piece is a big work of art. Sometimes you're just figuring out ideas, or whether the grout color looks good, or whether the glue's going to work. And having a pile of these handy, I think really is a good thing. So pardon my zipping out of the frame. Okay, so these are just things over the years that I've used either as teaching aids or to figure something out. But if you notice, they're all on the back of these bathroom tiles. You know, and sometimes you just want to know what a texture is going to look like, or whether that new grout color is any good, or what happens if you don't have any grout and you're just exposing, and you just want to see what the exposed thin set looks like. So I wish I could show you better lighting for that. Can you see that a little better? So there's no grout here at all. I just use thin set. Because what the hell, I was trying something new in a bathroom tile. Who cares? It's a bathroom tile.
So you sculpted the thin set? Is that what you did?
Yeah. So basically what I did was I covered the whole tile with a thin set. I kind of worked it out in advance so I knew, let's see if I can get it. So I had it worked out in advance, so I knew pretty much what I was going to do, and it was a pretty casual, quick thing. So I applied a layer of thin set, textured it just by pushing, maybe even with my finger or a trowel, pushing up and down, and then I just poked all the pieces in and walked away.
Awesome.
So that's what I'm saying. You know, these bathroom tiles, sometimes your best ideas come out of just sticking junk on junk. So the idea that anything is so precious, you know, it shouldn't be so precious. Have fun. You know, and the other thing is don't stay in the lines, or you can, like if I was doing this as a demo and I wanted to show, it's okay not to stay in the lines. If it's functional, stay in the lines, right? If what you're making is something you're going to put a glass or a pot on, you know, no, you don't want to spill it and make a wreck. But you know, in this case, I was just trying to explain how big chunks could be interesting and you don't have to stay in the line. And I was interested in these circles that were from the ceramics. So the idea of just sketching, not having everything be a big piece, meaning a lot, you know, I think a lot of things just are fun if they develop. Another thing I wanted to say real quickly is a lot of us have frames and things hanging around. Now, this is an empty frame that's made by a company, unfortunately, is no longer in business. I love these things, Aftosa, and I haven't quite found where you can get them yet, now that they're out of business. But you can make your own full frame just by taking Ouija board right here. A lot of mosaics people will have this Ouija board hanging around the house. It's actually a construction material. They use it for bathrooms and high-end spas. But you can cut it very easily yourself. And I just use a utility blade. And if I have a frame hanging around, I can cut my Ouija board, stick it right into the frame, and do my mosaic in the frame, which cuts down costs a lot. You don't really always want to be framing everything if you're frugal. It's much easier if you can work in the frame, because if you have it hanging around, it's, you know, cheap or free or however frugal you were. So that's just a hint, because, you know, I am a little cheap. Let's see. So that's kind of stuff. Go ahead.
Someone wants to know exactly what is that, the Ouija board that you were talking about?
Okay, it's WEDI. It's a foam core. Pardon me, I'm reaching for it. So it's used a lot for the walls and the floors in showers, for example, or in a spa environment. But it's very lightweight. So, you know, it's easy to ship. It would go inside or outside. It's easy to cut with utility blades, so you don't need power tools. Let's see, what did I say? Easy to cut, easy to ship because it's so light, inside or outside. If you use the right thickness and it comes thicker or thinner for the job, it won't warp, which is really nice. And you can order it online, or you can go to a tile supply place. Online, I know Maryland Mosaics has it online and will ship you, you know, like pre-cut kits of it almost. And she also has hanging devices in stock. Or you could go to a tile place. And again, since we're kind of on lockdown, probably the shipping option's a little better, but I'm not really sure of that based on what's going on right now. But as I said, it's a construction material, very easy to control.
It looks like drywall, but it's not at all like that, right?
It looks like what?
Drywall.
It's foam inside.
Okay, it's foam, okay.
Yeah, so it's an insulating foam basically with mesh on both sides, and then thin set on top of that would be, it's kind of like a mesh thin set foam sandwich.
Got it.
Okay, let's see, where are we? So let's talk about tools. So I have a ton of them, but I'm going to keep it really simple with the tools, and then I'm going to show you how to cut stuff with very few tools. So my toolkit, let's see, some things that are just handy to have. Basic, you want some painter's tape, or just what at this point, any tape you got's a good tape. Let's see, scissors. Okay, so for cutting things, for cutting the marble, I really like this tool. You can get these at home, a less expensive version of this at Home Depot, and the less expensive version is just as good as the platinum version that I have here. And I just want to show you, if I wanted to cut this, it's very good for things like marble. Oh, it's so good, it just fell out of the frame. Here we go. See where I'm going? And it's not very tough on your wrists. So it's a nice tool. And then this is my all-time favorite tool. This is a Laponnet nipper. And I'm gonna spell the brand because this is one of those few times in the world when the brand matters, or really matters. This is an LEPONITT wheeled nipper. And I've had other wheeled nippers and they have never lasted as long or done as well. Now there are a few, I'm sure that there are people who are gonna be offended by that, but I've been using these for years and they're great. You know,
what's
there are, I'm sorry, what?
What's the name of the tool?
Leponit. It's a Leponit wheeled nipper. Leponit, wheeled nipper. And you could get them at Maryland Mosaics or Wits End Mosaics. And I'm only mentioning those because I know they're shipping now. So, you know, you can definitely get a good version of, you can get this tool delivered. I hope they have them in stock, and I'm actually telling the truth. Okay, so I love this tool. Okay, for glass cutting, of course, you know, this is pretty standard. If you're using stained glass, this happens to be the version I like best because I can kind of guide it. I don't know if you can see, it's kind of a pistol grippy thing. My favorite, and running pliers. Okay, but tweezers, really important, and I like the ones with the bend in them, so I can kind of get down into things and still see where I'm going. And I'm going to show you how to use this thing because it'll let you cut up those bathroom tiles I keep talking about in a good way, and they're from Home Depot. So not a lot of stress involved in getting them. And then I love these. These are Italian Mosaic palettes. I'm not exactly sure how. They come in different sizes and different shapes. So you mix your thin set or your grout with this side, and you apply it with this side. And you know, you can, if you need to get in little places, you can do that. I actually use this one almost all the time. But I do have a variety of them just because I'm kind of obsessed with tools. This is kind of a very handy tool. If the glue you're using is water soluble and you want to get something up, an eyedropper will let you place water just around wherever it is that you need to get up. So if you're making them, you know, making a mosaic and you just want to get out a few things and you have water soluble adhesive, this will let you place it really well. And of course, pencils, markers, and
the Italian tools that you showed, they have a brand?
They do not have the brand, but you can get these, I know, from DMosaico. So that's dmosaico.com. And I believe, I'm not sure, you might be able to get them from Wits End Mosaic as well. But if you can't get them, especially now, you can use a painter's palette. Not a painter's palette, I'm sorry, a painter's spatula. What do you call those things? The plastic ones?
Oh, the
painter's
palette. I know exactly what you're talking about.
It's a knife, yeah.
A trowel or a knife.
Oh, nice, thank you.
Yeah, you can get plastic ones in art supply stores. They work. They're not quite as sexy, but they work. And then if you just want to stir, use popsicle sticks, or I actually, you know, doubled up the popsicle stick, or whatever you have around the house. Don't be fussy. But they are, you know, when you have a chance to get them, they're a great tool. I love them. You know, but you can always adapt. You're not stuck with this or nothing. And little pointy things, I like to move things around with them. So, you know, shish kebab skewer things, they're just, you push things around, and that's very helpful to me. So let's just say, how are we time-wise, Gerard?
No, I was gonna say it's 7:15 right now. We're supposed to stop, but why don't we give it 2 more minutes if you want to finish, and then we'll take questions.
I'm going to do a big finish for those who have no tools. I stole this technique from Isaiah Zagar. Well, I'm going to say it another way. Isaiah Zagar taught me this technique. And let's just say you're rough and ready and you just want to break up a bunch of stuff quick. So you do need safety equipment for this. You need a box. You need a very good glove. You might want this, although with my glasses are so big it doesn't matter, but safety goggles, I highly recommend them. And let me swing this down. So I happen to have this flower pot that I want to break because I want I want some brown material. If I hold it down into the box will catch all the broken pieces and I can get what I need. Now this is the part where looks a little scary, don't be scared. If you aim for the rounded part of your palm right here, and you're wearing safety gloves, do not do this without safety gloves. I can get smaller and smaller pieces. Well, the box is really handy because it catches all the crap. I can pull out what I like and get rid of the rest. And I can refer back to some of these other tools. Like I'm going to come out here and I'm going to use my lapponet now that I have this little piece right over here. Can you guys see what I'm doing? I can now get a square if that's what I'm looking for. And it does speed things up. So let's just say all I want is these little cubes. I wanted that brown and I couldn't find that color brown in either the glass or the stone. I can make these little cubes. I can make any size I want. And if I'm not being too fussy, you know, I can just use the hammer and the box, or I can use any tool I do have to refine my process. So, you know, thank you, Isaiah. The box technique worked out really well for me. I don't use it that much myself in the house because usually I'm doing more refined things. But if you're doing a bunch of, you know, if you're working with a large group or doing a very large project, if you're working with teenagers especially, the hammer and the box, if you let them break things with that hammer and that box, they will love you forever. I used to do a lot of work with youth at risk, and the hammer and the box, I was in like Flynn forever. So anyway, that's kind of a rough and ready technique. If you're really saying, I got nothing, you have something you can break and you have a box and a hammer, and that's material.
So I feel like this might be a good time to stop, Carol. Is that okay?
Sure.
Yeah, I know that we need the second part to this class. I know that already. And I'm sure everyone agrees with me. But let's take some questions now first. I'm going to start with this one. Someone wants to know about the brands for the grout. Do you recommend any?
Yes.
Sand, no sand, powder, or premix? What do you recommend?
Okay, I am so glad you asked that question. Okay, I'm going to show you first of all, I buy my grout powdered. I like sanded grout. I usually buy from Home Depot only because it's Polyblend is the brand. It has a slightly more open working time. It works a little more than the grout that you get from Lowe's. It happens, this is the Lowe's Tex brand right here. Okay, but I'm storing it in a plastic box. It's really important that you store your grout. So you want sanded grout. You want it with a polymer additive they'll say it in the packages, and you want to store it in plastic because otherwise, if it gets wet, it's ruined. And theoretically, grout has a 1-year shelf life, but if you store it well enough in that plastic, you can sometimes get it to go longer. Actually, often get it to go longer. So plastic, stored in plastic, sanded. In an emergency, you can use premix, but I'm not a big fan.
Okay. Now about the tile nippers, you showed the 2 different kinds. They're wondering, do they cut very differently or is it kind of similar?
Oh, good questions. Okay, so this one is actually, the lapponet is designed mostly for glass. So for example, I use it, but having said that, I use it on everything. I'm really I'm guilty of abusive tool. But when you get it, it doesn't open this far. There's a little black peg right here that I took out so that I could get it to open more. And I also have to change my wheels a little more than a lot of other people might have to because I abuse the tool. But so you say this is mostly for glass, but I use it on china. I use it, you know, like if it fits in there, for the most part. If it fits in there, I'm going to use it.
That was one of the questions. How can you break a plate? And you just did it.
I'll do a better one for you.
Okay.
This one is more for stone. I would use it for much thicker things and for stone. Okay, so I'm going to show you a plate real quick. And Gerard, if I go on too much, you have to tell me to stop.
Yeah, it's okay. We still have time. Yeah.
Okay, good.
But I have questions. I have many.
Okay, so I'm going to use my Lapponet. I like to kind of go in a controlled manner. So can you guys see it?
Yes.
Okay, good. So I'm just going to break across. And in this case, there's some things that I'm interested on this plate. And it happens that I'm very interested in the butterfly. And I'm kind of controlling it. I don't want it to go flying everywhere. So can you see the butterfly?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm very interested in that butterfly. So I'm going to continue to nip to the butterfly. And my technique, it's called a pinch technique. And by holding on to both sides of the piece, I keep things from flying everywhere. And flying everywhere, it's bad enough if you blind yourself, but if you blind your friend and neighbor, things are really bad. So there's my element right there. I can use that design element any way I want. Also with plates, I love the marks. This one didn't survive very well, but a lot of times I'll save the marks on the back. Sometimes I'm not going for a design element at all. Sometimes I'm only going for a color. So this plate, for example, has a very nice range of blues. So I could, quote, mine the plate in order to get a lot of those blues. I justify breaking nice old plates to myself by saying two things. One of them, if it already has a chip, it's fair game. It had a chip. And also, we all know how, those plates that our beloved mothers and grandmothers saved, nobody wants anymore. Have fun. They are the best art supplies ever.
Awesome.
Go ahead. What's the next one?
Next one is about the hooks on the back of the frames or the boards. You apply them yourself, some of them, right?
Yes. So was it the hooks on the back of like this kind?
Yeah, like that. Like, how do you apply them, or the other kind too as well?
Okay, so these are pretty simple. I shouldn't say pretty simple. These are just D hooks, and so you get the D hook, you get a little screw, you drill a little hole right in the wood, put your D hook and your screw, and just screw in. So, I like to make sure that they face each other because I like the wire to go across. I don't want my wires poking up over the side. So when I put the wire on, the picture wire, it'll be pretty tight and from here to here and very secure. That's one of those things. You don't want your thing landing on the ground in the middle of the show. Those are not calls you like.
And what about on the board?
On the Ouija board. Good question. Sorry for my back, everybody.
We like
okay, I order a kit. But you can do this yourself. You don't need the kit. Sorry, Marilyn Mosaic. But you should probably get the kit at least once. The kit is, these are called weedy washers. And it comes with very good instructions. And you can make regular washers. And there are people who have, here's your instructions, Marilyn Mosaic's. They're very easy to pass, to follow. But you'll see there's a variety of techniques, where the washer keeps the screw from going through the foam. Because if you don't use a washer for some kind, the screw head will go right through the foam and it'll come off the wall. So you have to have some washer in front. And again, as I said, Marilyn Mosaics, if you get the kit from Marilyn Mosaics once and follow the directions, you can figure out how to do one yourself. You know, it's worth the investment is where I was going. And there are some other people who have very good instructions online. Unfortunately, I cannot remember what those are at the moment.
So the Wheatie board that you buy, it has is it a half an inch thick or how thick is it?
Well, it comes in different thicknesses. The one I buy, if I'm making something really small, I could use the 1/8 inch. But there's 1/8 inch, 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch, 4 inch. Like if you're making a bench, you can even order extruded bench parts if you want to make furniture. You know, and it's a lot of, I made one for an art center once, and it was a lot of fun. I had a great time. You know, we just took all these Wheatie parts and we made a major piece of furniture, and it's been up there maybe 6 years or so, and it's fine outside in the weather. This one is, I think this is 1/2 inch, I think.
So you go back and forth between them.
I'm sorry, what?
You go back and forth between them, the size?
Yeah, it depends on the project. If it's a bigger project, I want a thicker board. If it's a very small project, I might just want a little thin board.
Okay, and the hooks, they come a lot of them in a bag? Is that what it is?
No, that's the thing. No. A bag has enough for one frame. And also, if you are shopping through Maryland Mosaics, the frame that she offers one where you attach it right to the wall, and another one where it has the D-rings and the hook. So most people want the D-rings and the hook so that it can be picked up and moved around. But let's just say you're putting something in a kitchen backsplash, perhaps. Then you would want the other version.
All right. We have time for like one more question. Aside from 6-day, what else do you use to apply to glue tiles to the surface?
Good question. So I always believe in going with the least toxic option. So if I'm not fighting gravity and if it's not going outside, I use Well Bond. Okay, but Well Bond is not toxic, and no matter what the packaging says, it doesn't go outside. Don't do it. But if you don't have Well Bond is a polyvinyl acetate. So here's another one. A lot of us have glue all, Elmer's glue all in the house. Don't use school glue. School glue is actually really just made to be easy to clean up. Water will make everything release. But Elmer's glue all, Eileen's tacky glue, there's a whole slew of polyvinyl acetate glues available that will work for mosaics in a pinch. We just assume we need to use Well Bond because that's what everybody uses. In addition, I sometimes use GE2 silicone. I use clear if I'm using glass on glass, for example, and I want light to go through it. But sometimes I might be using white silicone. Let's just say I have a piece of glass that I don't want to be affected by the background behind it. I can change the color of my glue to make the light behave differently with the glass. So silicone, I like the GE2 brand, personally. And then I sometimes use this. This is all-purpose MAC glue. It's glass on glass. It doesn't work with metal at all. Don't even go there. I called the manufacturer. It was one of my nice chats. But on glass, it works quite well. And he's having a hard time shipping right now, the manufacturer. So you might want to stick with the GE2.
Carol, it's been amazing. You are like so talented, and you have everything in there. Like, I feel like if I ask you for a glass of wine, you can like pull it.
No wine, but tea.
Oh my God, I learned so much. Thank you so much. And I hope we can do another one because people want more and more. Many more questions. But yeah.
Thank you, Carol.
Thank you.
Please remember, if you like this, please do support Fleisher. We'll do more for you. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, Carol.
Bye, Carol. Thank you.
Very good.
Thanks.
Thank you, Carol.
Thanks, Carol.
I recognize so many voices.
You look good. You look healthy.
Awesome.
Everybody stay healthy.
Hi, Carol. Hi, everybody who I recognize.
Hi, Barbie.
Oh, my video's off. Oh, well. I'll start it.
Barbie.
Carol, I sent you a private chat, but this was amazing. I mean,
Well,
you really,
thank you.
you did a killer presentation. And one thing I pointed out was because you're at a slight angle, you really look like you're talking to someone in an audience.
Yeah.
Remember what an audience used to be? And
Yes.
it looks so great.
Well, thank you very much. And I have to tell you, I was a little nervous, but I'm so happy to see you all. And I miss you. So thanks for signing up and thanks for letting me babble.
Thank
You can babble anytime.
Thank you.
Angela's here too. Hello, Angela.
Thanks,
Yeah, this was
Carol.
great.
Great.
Welcome.
Bye.
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 Bye.